Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first ever episode of Under Center, which is a fantasy football podcast hosted by myself and my lifelong friend here, Jack Schnall. To give you a little intro, this is something we've been discussing doing for quite a while now, and the time has finally come around, and we decided, you know what? We go all out for fantasy every year. We're two of the most, knowledgeable and in-tune guys with sport every week in, week out. And we're excited to get going. We're going to cover our top 50 running backs this episode, and we're going to kind of dive into more of the positional lists like as we go, episode to episode. And you'll also follow, our predictions for, weeks throughout the season, our own fantasy league, which we're excited about, and much more. So stay in tune. But I want to pass the baton here to Jack. He'll introduce himself, and we'll kick it off.
I'm pumped up, Zach. It's been a long time coming. As you said, we talk football constantly on the phone, over in person, talking football all day, every day. So we finally said, let's put it on camera, put it out to the masses. Maybe some of our insights will help some listeners out and get them some good fantasy advice for the upcoming season.
That's what it's about. We hope that one of our many bold takes, some may age well, some might not, but hopefully a couple of them help you find your league winner and kill it this year in fantasy. So like I said, we're going to dive into running backs here. I'll also post, so Jack and I each have our own top 50 running backs for PPR. We also average those lists and have a consensus top 50. And then that's also on a chart compared to, other platforms like ESPN, Sleeper, and kind of where they have their running back rankings. So we'll share all this with you as these videos get posted and in the description for those on YouTube. So yeah, we'll kick it off. Jack, you want to hit us, start us right at the top with our top number one overall. Yep. Well, we kind of have a tie here on our consensus, but our top running backs in PPR this season.
Yeah, let's start with just the tier one. Clearly for every fantasy football platform out there this year is Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Saquon Barkley. For us, we got Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs both tied at the one spot. I have Bijan at 1. You have Jahmyr at 1. We have two for each other for the other ones. So yeah, I think these two guys are clear-cut number one options, must-draft guys if they fall to you. So let's get into it. Zach, why did you have Jahmyr at 1 in your spot?
Yeah, so like Jack said, we had the same tier one kind of Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley kind of rounding out the top 3 this year. I actually put Jahmyr Gibbs at the top of my list for a bunch of reasons. But last year, he finishes the RB1 in PPR. I know, Jack, you're going to say Saquon sat out the final week and Gibbs went off for I believe like 40 points in week 18. But with all of this being said, you got a lead efficiency from Gibbs last year. I think it's a little bit safer, obviously, in the offense. I know Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn on both sides of the ball are now exiting Detroit. But again, super efficient running back. Was up there in yards per carry with Saquon Barkley, who had a career year, over 2,000 rushing yards. Going to do it in the pass game, so PPR checks that box. And I think the floor is higher for Gibbs because you kind of know what you get with Detroit. But again, if you're all in on Michael Penix, you're all in on the Falcons. Obviously, Bijan as a talent is one of the best, if not the best, skilled running backs in the game. I am just leaning Gibbs slightly because of the confidence I have in the Lions offense over the Falcons offense. And again, he had a RB1 finish last year with Montgomery. I know he missed some time, but still with Montgomery there. I understand the Montgomery concerns, but as Montgomery gets older, you expect the backfield to lean more to Gibbs. And with during the time Montgomery missed last year, Gibbs proved to be a 3-down workhorse, RB1 in fantasy type guy, and I don't see that changing.
It's very close. I think both guys are legit top options there. Yeah. I think that the narrow edge goes to Bijan for me. If you look at weeks 6 through 18, he had a rough start to the season last year, but Bijan really picked it up. He was definitely the top running back. If you just look at narrowed down to those couple of weeks there, I think there's a lot of passing production too. I was surprised to see he had more receptions and targets than Jahmyr. You typically think of Jahmyr as the PPR guy that's going to get a lot of receptions. I think my concerns in Gibbs is maybe a little touchdown regression. He had 16 last year, so a lot of touchdowns. David Montgomery wasn't there the full year, so he's not the goal line back. So that's really like the slight margin, but both guys I'm drafting within that top 5 there.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you on those things. Again, we're splitting hairs. I do think it's very close. I don't think I wouldn't be surprised if either one of these guys finished the best fantasy running back this year. It's a good point that you made with Gibbs on the kind of the touchdown regression stuff. He did have a lot of touchdowns last year. And obviously, I think Saquon said himself that Bijan Robinson is like the next big thing, in terms of talent, the way he gets in and out of cuts, his explosiveness, his effect, like how he affects the receiving game. He's a tough tackle all around. And when you have someone like that, I would say the best running back in football right now, saying that about you, that's cause to draft you at least in the top 5, I would say. Again, rounding out our top 3, Saquon Barkley. Speaking of regression, I think we both had him at 3. Again, 2,000 yards in a season. You know how many guys? There have been 8 guys who've ran for 2,000 yards in a season. In the season following that, how many of them have eclipsed 1,500 rushing yards in the season after they ran for 2,000? Out of all 8 of them.
Go a big fat 0.
Yes.
Big fat 0. Am I right?
You're right on the money there. 0 have had 1,500 or more in a season following a 2,000-yard rushing season, including Derrick Henry, Chris Johnson, rest of the guys, Adrian Peterson, all these guys who've eclipsed that number. So again, expect a little bit of regression from Saquon. The Landon Dickerson injury that just popped up a couple days ago is a little bit of concern. I believe he avoided the major meniscus and ACL injury, but it is a meniscus injury. They have I think the Eagles came out and said he's week to week. That affects Saquon a bit, and that's enough to kind of have him at 3 for me with kind of the O-line changes there. I mean, Landon Dickerson's one of the best guards in the league. I think the Eagles as a whole, they're coming off an historic year, so I do expect Saquon to come back to earth a little bit, but again, top 3 option at the position.
Absolutely, yeah, Zach. It was incredible amount of volume last year, including the playoffs as well. He never got that type of work on the Giants. He had some big years, but not getting that many carries there, especially with the playoffs added in. Saquon obviously is an explosive back. He had 17 runs for over 20 yards last year. So I still love Saquon. The situation's great. The team is going to be winning games. They're going to be up big. They're going to be giving Saquon the ball a ton. As long as he doesn't get injured, which I'm a little concerned with the age, the injury history there, and not having the best handcuff to hook up with Shipley. I don't necessarily, like, you're not getting Shipley as your handcuff, and he's not going to be a top 10 back like maybe Tyler Algier will be with Bijan. But
although he's looked good in the preseason, but there's a significant drop after Saquon Barkley in that running back room for sure.
Yeah, when we're splitting
the last thing with Saquon is you're also banking on they're in the red zone a lot, but his breakaway ability. And I don't know what the number was, but he had a significant amount of like 40, 50-yard plus touchdowns last year. I do think that number is going to come down a little bit. Again, against the Rams alone, it felt like he had 4 touchdowns for over 60 yards. Like, again, people have a full season of Saquon Barkley on tape with the Eagles in that offense. Some of those I think are going to be taken off the board for Saquon. So I don't see another top 2 finish like last year.
Yeah, I'll also say with Saquon, there's some concerns there, but also the passing volume he got last year, I think there's room for a little more. He only had 278 yards on 33 receptions. They don't have much going on there in the Eagles offense besides the top 2 options. So you could definitely see Saquon getting a couple more catches in there. So still firmly a top 3 guy.
Yeah, totally. All right, let's move on to number 4. We both had him at 4. So in our consensus list, he's also 4. CMC, Christian McCaffrey. Talk to me a little bit about CMC, Jack.
CMC is it's all about the injury, right? If he stays healthy, he's a top guy. He's gonna be a league winner. And that Niners offense is really taken aback a little bit with the weapons they got. No more Debo. Ayuk's out at the beginning of the year. CMC is gonna be leaned on heavily if he's healthy. Sorry.
Yeah. I said until week 6, I believe Ayuk's out.
Yeah, about week 6. More, who knows? But yeah, CMC is a hell of a runner if he's playing. If he's not, he's someone where there's definitely injury risk there. So I'm not targeting CMC at the beginning of first rounds. Towards the end of first rounds, obviously, if he falls to me, that's a great value if he's healthy and plays the whole year. And to pair him up with an elite wide receiver, another elite running back is a really good option.
Yeah, again, that I hate to bring the injury factor into it, but it's football. CMC does have a history of getting injured, but in 2 full seasons of sample size we have in the Niners offense, CMC has finished as the best PPR running back and the second best PPR running back. So again, if you're getting a full season out of Christian McCaffrey, you're getting a top 3 option if with potential upside to be the best, especially with the volume he's going to get in the passing game. Like you said, with Samuel gone, with IU kind of on the shelf. I know they have Ricky Pearsall and Brock Purdy's connection with Juwan Jennings, but I like to draft, we're drafting to win our leagues. We're not drafting to come in 3rd or 4th or 5th. Like, that takes a little risk. Yes, you're taking a risk on I keep saying Saquon, on Christian McCaffrey at this position as his current ADP in the first round, but you have the upside again if he stays healthy of him being a solidified, top 3 running back in fantasy PPR, which can get you deep in the playoffs. Their division in the West is kind of wide open, so I see McCaffrey getting volume touches later into the season as well. And yeah, it's I think that's everything on CMC. Now that he's about
CMC, make sure to draft this handcuff in Guerrero. I mean, he proved it last year. Guerrero could be a feasible, like a nice add in there. He could be top 20 fantasy back if he's starting. Yeah. So yeah, that's a big factor there because you never know with CMC. And at least we know the guy is Guerrero right now. Last year, I think it was Mason, but also then it was Guerrero. So we'll see how many running backs get on the line this year.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing we know is any running back in the 49ers offense is viable, right? Like, CMC goes down, obviously you lose your RB1, but if you have that handcuff, you have an RB2 / like a low-end RB2, high-end flex option just based on how the 49ers run their offense. Yeah. So moving on to number 5, I think, again, we're in agreement here. Hopefully, later in the video we'll have some more argumentative disagreements, but Devon Achane... I know we will. Devon Achane rounds out our top 5 here. Jack, give me your opinion on Achane this year and the Dolphins as a whole.
Well, Achane really proved something last year when Tua went out and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill were not really viable, and Achane was still pretty viable fantasy wise. He is a PPR guy that is I think I'm looking at the stats right now. He maybe led those top couple running backs in receiving yards and receptions as well. I mean, there's a lot of, throwdowns, like little throwdowns last year where Achane was able to pick up some yards there. He doesn't have any competition really. I think who got injured the other day, the backup there, out for a year now.
I don't know.
No, he was it was Madison. Yeah, Alexander Madison. That's who it was.
Yeah.
I think
I forgot they signed him.
Not relevant anyway, but Achane in PPR especially, he's someone I would love to have on my team. Again, because I don't see him at running backs as viable as the top receivers this year. I have him more as the end of a first round guy. But yeah, if he falls to you, it's a great addition, top 5 guy for us.
Yeah. Again, with the disaster the Miami Dolphins were last year, Devon Achane was the one consistent thing in that offense. Finished 5th in PPR somehow with Tua missing time and the offense being very dysfunctional. McDaniel loves to get him in space, loves to use him. 1,500 plus scrimmage yards last year. I think that's a floor. I think that's a floor coming into this year with the rest of, kind of the offense coming back and getting back to health. Can do it both ways. 6 rushing touchdowns last year in 2024. 6 receiving touchdowns as well. Again, minimal competition for touches. Going to be heavily involved. All those things are green flags for fantasy managers come early August and late August and early September when we're doing our draft. So we're high on Achane this year. We're high on the Dolphins bounce back to be somewhat relevant, more competitive than they were last year. I think Tua came out and addressed the issues he was having in the past game and with kind of the
drama,
the dysfunctionalities he had with Hill and Waddle and that's a growth step for them, a leadership step for Tua, and I think they cleaned it up this year. For sure.
Yeah, and you also could see that 6 mark for touchdowns in the rushing game going up quite a bit.
Yeah, and you're gonna get the passing work no matter what. I mean, this guy they love getting the ball out of Tua's hands quick, especially with the injury history. And this guy can take it the distance at any play. So definitely some upside here for another top 5 finish for Achane.
My next tier there is McCaffrey and Achane. I think then there's another drop off. I'd say. I don't know if you agree on that.
I do agree. I think that's.
I have our next
agreement on. I do have, and they're kind of Achane's kind of treated like McCaffrey in a way. The volume in the pass game, the volume in the rushing game, they kind of have similar workloads. He's kind of the baby CMC, except he's a little bit more elusive, a little bit of a smaller back, and McCaffrey's kind of a run you over type back, a very physical back, but they both get that kind of usage both ways, which is very unique and especially relevant for PPR. Moving on to our number 6 slot, we had the rookie from Boise State, 5'8.5", ball of fury, Ashton Jeanty. Jack, what do you got in Ashton Jeanty? What do you see him doing in 2025-26?
Yeah, obviously an unknown, dominant in college, unbelievable performance there last year at Boise State. He is in an offense I'm not sure about with the Raiders, but I do think he is definitely someone who could score a lot of touchdowns this year. We'll see what he's like in the NFL, but yeah, he's an explosive, like pretty impressive runner. But we're just not sure about him at this point. That's why we have a little lower than some other platforms. So definitely skeptical about like drafting him so high, but if he falls to you in the second round, yeah, I'd take Jeanty.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you said. I don't necessarily want to say he's not a great running back in the pass game, just because at Boise State they just hand him the ball and forget about it. So I don't think they use him. They use him to his full potential in the pass game, where in the NFL he's not going to have 80-yard run after 70-yard run, kind of how he did in college. They're going to utilize him a lot. And again, if you're the Las Vegas Raiders, you're taking this guy at top of the first round, you're going to use him a lot. They put a lot of draft capital into him. They hired Pete Carroll. They went out and got a veteran quarterback who could mentor him and can lead that offense and communicate with him. I think the Raiders are just going to be a little bit exciting this year. In one league, I hope to have Ashton Jeanty or a Brock Bowers or someone in that offense, just kind of the boom capability. I do believe we are a little lower on him here than other platforms are. That'd be being ESPN, Sleeper. And I think he's also in a tough division. We have to take that into consideration. Broncos, Chiefs, Chargers, these are defenses that aren't going to let you stomp all over them like Boise State opponents did last year in CFB. So I'm excited to see Jeanty. Again, he's a small running back, but he's super strong. He's got the speed, ran for over 2,600 yards in his final season at Boise State, which is very impressive. So that's Ashton Jeanty. I think it's worth taking a flyer.
We saw him in the preseason game, 3 carries for -1 yards.
I'm not looking too much into that.
Yeah,
very small sample size.
Offensive line for the Raiders is not the best. Yeah, you like to see him do something in the preseason just to really invest in that early round capital there.
And we've seen in fantasy, rookie running backs return first round value.
Oh yeah, for sure. If you look at historically, first round running backs like Saquon, Leonard Fournette, Ezekiel Elliott are usually finishing in the top.
Taylor, all these big names have had monster years. It's coming out of college with this similar hype, I guess Ashton Jeanty has. For sure. Moving on, following Ashton Jeanty, we have another exciting young running back entering a second year in the NFC South, and that is Mr. Bucky Irving. We consensus have him at 7. Talk to me a bit about, especially the excitement from the second half of last year when he fully won the backfield from Rachaad White. We're kind of excited about Bucky here. We have him high. 7 is high. So give me your thoughts on Bucky Irving.
Yeah, and we just saw Rachaad White had a little tweak in the offseason there. I think he's going to be fine, but that's, if anything, encouraging that
that's something.
More first team. Yeah, moving up a spot. Irving is, he did everything you would want him to do in that first year when he got the opportunity. He only had 207 carries there and still
the number's low for sure.
Yeah,
much lower than like a typical RB1.
He didn't, and he was still incredibly productive. 5.4 yards per carry, a lot of passing production too. 392 yards in the receiving game. So I do like Bucky Irving. I think he is the Bucs offense is explosive. There's so many weapons there. It's hard to know if they're going to be more in the passing game or run game. You think about that division, some of those matchups. They're stronger than the Panthers, the Saints, all those teams. So they might be up in a bunch of games running the ball a lot. So that's something to consider. But in general, I'm high on Irving, and I think we have him higher than most consensus as well. You're a little higher than me on him. I think I have him at 8. You have him at 7. But still drafting him if you can get him in the second round.
Yeah, 100%. Another dual threat guy. You bring up a bunch of good points, one being the efficiency we saw last year. 5.4 yards per carry is up there with the Gibbs and the Saquons, and that's something that he could repeat this year. Weakness in schedule. The division's not going to be great. The Saints are going to be really bad in particular. And Panthers are exciting. Yeah, you got Bryce Young. You draft McMillan at Arizona, but they're still behind in terms of relevancy in the NFC. And yeah, you have a basically a rookie second-year quarterback in Atlanta. You can see positive game scripts for Bucky Irving. He's going to get majority of the backfield. They're going to still use Rashad White, but with his explosiveness.
Look at the last end of the year there with Rashad Wright. Like during the middle of the year, there's a little more split, but Bucky Irving, especially at the end of the year, the playoffs, he was really dominating the load there, the carries. So I think he's going to be that's going to be the trend in this year as well. I don't see Rashad.
I mean, it'll be an 80-20. It'll be I don't know the exact snap counts. We can look into that, but it was Bucky Irving's backfield, and it's his to lose again this year. They drafted Igbuka, who's exciting out of Ohio State. I do think with looking at the offense as a whole, Baker Mayfield isn't going to have the season he had last year. He had an elite season last year. I'm not saying he's going to be a bad quarterback or not going to be fantasy viable, but Godwin still dealing with the injury from last year. Mike Evans is a year older. Can he have another 1,000-yard season? Who knows? I'm not going to doubt him.
There was injuries last year throughout the year that kind of made Irving's role get elevated a little more than maybe it will this year. I mean, we already got Godwin's not going to be there maybe the first couple of weeks. And then you got the rookie wide receivers, so maybe they'll step in. And maybe they'll have more weapons this year than last year, so that could play an effect. Overall,
I just see them leaning in more on the run. Baker was balling last year, taking hits, extending plays. Much of the discontent of the coaching staff. They'd love to use Bucky. They'd love to have, I think, that 204 number, 207, however many touches he got, rushing wise, is going to increase significantly. So buy in, and we're bought in on Bucky. Yeah, we like him in the anywhere in the second round, really. Moving on, we have Derrick Henry, old reliable Baltimore offense, elite touchdown scorer. Jack, you're pretty high on. You have Henry here at 7. I have him at 9. Give me your thoughts on Henry. Is he going to have another monster season for Baltimore in a tough AFC North?
Yeah, I think you said it. Old reliable. The guy scored touchdowns last year, 16 on the year. About a touchdown game. I don't see where the regression is going to come. Baltimore doesn't have a ton of wide receiver touchdown threats. Zay Flowers is not a high volume guy. Bateman had way more touchdowns than I expect them to have this year. So I think they're just going to be pounding the ball a lot with Henry. I think he's but I think he's a reliable guy. So if you're going to win your drafts, maybe you take some risks in the later rounds. Those first 2 rounds, you get guys are going to be top 10 running backs. So I expect Henry's going to be a top 5, top 10 guy this year again.
Yeah. Again, we talk about age with running backs. We reach and claw and try to find any excuse we can to lower someone in our rankings. But I think it's safe to admit at this point, we've seen enough Derrick Henry to understand he's an exception to this rule. This guy is a freak of nature. One of the biggest running back, most physical running back, faster than you think, can run you over. That age as well. He's not getting any smaller. He's getting old man strong, as some like to say. Hasn't had less than 10 rushing touchdowns since 2017. That's, I didn't graduate high school yet. So he's been doing this for a long time. And we tried to sleep on him last year. Everyone was taking him 2-3 turn later in fantasy drafts than he's ever been drafted. And if you took him at that value, he could have been a league winner for you. High floor when it comes to touchdowns, obviously. Finished his runs. He's old reliable. We said it. He didn't get a ton of uses in the past game. They still have Justice Hill over there. They're looking to get Keaton Mitchell a little bit involved. He's been getting
I like Keaton Mitchell.
I know you liked Keaton Mitchell ever since they drafted him. But yeah, it doesn't matter. It lowers him a little bit marginally in PPR. You're not getting that pass work, but you could pencil in 12 touchdowns. You could pencil in 1,200 rushing yards, and at RB 7, 8, 9, that's paying dividends for you. So we see Derrick Henry repeating. We see, the Ravens is a top, I believe, the favorite or tied with Buffalo to win the AFC. If they're going to do that, if Vegas thinks they're going to do that, well, 22's got to tote the rock a little bit there. Some Derrick Henry stock for you.
Yeah, Derrick Henry, like we said, is reliable, and there's not that many questions this year with Henry as opposed to a lot of guys where there's a lot of different options in there, and you might want to get one of those running backs in the first, second, third round just to get someone you can count on this year if you're gonna go.
It's the most. Yeah, it's the most lethal run pass option in the game. You have breakaway speed, elusiveness at quarterback. You have someone who could run you over and turn contact at the line of scrimmage into a 4 or 5 yard gain. It's tough to stop, especially.
Like Saquon, it makes you think, what would this guy be like if he was with Lamar Jackson his whole career? What would Saquon be like
Or
if
the
he was
numbers.
with the Eagles offense whole career?
Yeah, it's a good comparison. Moving on here, we have Jonathan Taylor coming in at number 9.
We have a tie at 9. We have Jonathan Taylor and Chase Brown. So I have Chase Brown ahead of Jonathan Taylor. You have Jonathan Taylor a little higher. That's my kind of third tier there. Jeanty, Irving, Henry, and Chase Brown. We can talk about Brown first if that works, and then sprinkle in some Taylor too. I think we're both very high on Chase Brown. The Bengals offense, we've seen Zach Moss get cut now. I do think part of that is because they got a good rookie in there. So get some sneaky rushes in there. And my guy, what's his name?
Brooks? Is that who they have?
Yeah, that's who it is. Yeah, Taj Brooks. I'm high on as a safety precaution. If you're gonna go the handcuff strategy. What Chase Brown did last year when his role expanded and Zach Moss got injured for the year was really impressive. You saw him get a lot of work in the passing game. If you watch that preseason game, I know we're not supposed to talk too much about preseason, but he got 3 catches.
We're excited.
Some good production there. And the Bengals offense, I expect to be a top 5 offense in the league. So similar to like Barkley or Derrick Henry, he's going to get a lot of opportunities for touchdowns and a lot of opportunities for just work in general.
Yeah, I see Taylor and Brown as more even than not. If that makes anyone feel any better. Chase Brown, we're talking about 0 backfield competition. You have the best wide receiver, one of the best wide receiver duos in the league, and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and one of the most elite offenses in the league with Joe Burrow healthy and at the helm. They need a bounce back year. They don't want to start the year on a losing streak like they did last year. And Chase Brown, 25 years old, checks all the boxes. He's going to get you some in the pass game. He's going to get you some red zone touches, touchdowns. It's a great option here at RB9, RB10 with upside to move up higher into the top 10. Being in that offense, I'm not too worried about Taj Brooks behind him. I think it's his backfield to lose. Joe Mixon, you look at a guy like Joe Mixon who had great fantasy years. Then you go back and look at Jeremy Hill. You look at all these guys who were big time utilizations in the Bengals offense.
Going back before Joe Burrow?
You know what? Yeah, but we'll talk about Joe Mixon. They use their running backs in Cincinnati, okay? They use their skill position players. They use Jamar Chase. They use AJ Green. They use their guys, and I think Chase Brown. I'm dating myself a little bit, but I do think Chase Brown.
They used Mohamed Sanu pretty good. I remember that one.
Tyler Eifert had a big year.
Yeah,
but yeah, Joe Mixon killed it with Joe Burrow. That offense was a touchdown machine. Chase Brown's has a year under his belt now with the Bengals. Now he's going to come back even better. 25-year-old season. It's just green flag after green flag for me, Jack.
I agree. I think he's a little undervalued in some of those metrics I've seen in the general fantasy community. Chase Brown's getting a lot of hype, but in the ESPN, Yahoo, whatever rankings we're looking at, maybe your league mates aren't paying attention. You could get him a little higher. I'd be very comfortable drafting him in the end of the second round, whenever in the second round, to be honest. And then if he falls to you in the third round, that's an absolute steal.
I think the floor last year you're looking at PPR 10 and running backs. It's a good floor you can kind of put there for Chase Brown. I think.
And he didn't even have the full backfield at the start of the years.
Yeah.
Only works for him as long as he stays healthy, and Taj Brooks isn't as dominant as those reports are coming at in practice.
You said Taj Brooks' name way too many times on our first episode here. But okay, moving on. Jonathan Taylor, another guy we had in this tier. Great year last year, especially towards the end of the year. Talk to me a bit about JT with the disaster Colts offense and quarterback situation.
I think that's
steady again this year.
Concern for me is Richardson, Daniel Jones looked pretty terrible already. I mean, we got a quarterback competition. One of those guys should be able to take charge a little bit and show that they're worth giving the Colts a chance this year. Jonathan Taylor obviously going to get a lot of volume, not a lot of passing down work, even though he should be in an offense where he's getting a lot of little check downs. I don't know. There's a ceiling on Jonathan Taylor that some of these other guys don't have. I mean, I think there's a good floor for Jonathan Taylor, And similar to Derrick Henry, you kind of get that dependable running back that's going to have the whole backfield. But he's just not a guy for me I'm too excited about, just because of that offense and the limitations. And they're going to stuff the box for Taylor. I don't know exactly how productive he's going to be when all the attention's on him again.
Yeah. Again, is absolutely right.
He's done good things with a lot of attention.
I'm shocked as a Giants fan. You said Daniel Jones was bad.
Yeah, I've been saying that since he got drafted with the Giants.
I'm being sarcastic. He's awful, but he's looking better than Anthony Richardson right now.
The starter, yeah, Handy Richardson. No,
yeah. So they may want the security of, I guess we could say he's a veteran now, Daniel Jones, having been in the league for 5 years or whatever the number is, to kind of steady them.
He got 2 contracts with the Giants, something like that. Crazy.
Similar to how Joe Flacco came
with the Colts. I don't know what the Colts are doing.
Yeah, again, Jonathan Taylor is going to see the same amount of attention that he got last year, and he proved that he can withstand that and still have a productive fantasy year. So I am a little higher on him than you are. The usage is very high, over 300 carries.
I don't understand why he's only getting 136 yards on 18 receptions all year. That doesn't make much sense to me, especially with the quarterback play. He should be getting
no quarterback.
No, but
no quarterback, and they're in a division where you can run the ball. So right. The Titans aren't too good. Jaguars, who knows if their run defense is going to be any good. Division isn't great. Jonathan Taylor can kind of feast in those matchups. The usage is steady. 300 carries last year, 300 plus carries last year. That's the second most in his career since 2021. As we recall from before, that was his RB1 season where he had 332 carries and finished with, I don't know the number, but it's probably around 400 PPR fantasy points. So I have Jonathan Taylor in that tier, a step above Chase Brown. I do think Chase Brown has the upside to finish ahead of him, but in terms of volume, security, and ability in the run game, yard to yard, I'm going to give to Jonathan Taylor a slight edge, but again, very close, 1A, 1B type situation.
Like I said, I have Taylor in the tier below from Chase Brown and those guys I discussed. I don't think there's the same excitement opportunity there. He's still a top 11 guy for me, so I'm drafting him if he's falling, but I'm just not jumping the gun on where he's being valued right now.
Totally hear you. Moving on, we can kind of talk in tiers, I guess. Again, you're going to have our full rankings, our consensus rankings, my rankings, Jack's rankings in terms of top 50 PPR running backs. But moving on to this next tier, from Jonathan Taylor, from your Chase Brown, we have James Cook, Josh Jacobs, Kyren Williams, and Breece Hall. We can go one by one. Jack, you can kind of talk about them as a group, who you like, who you don't like, who you see as a value play, maybe not so much of a value play. What do you got?
Yeah. We'll start James Cook. James Cook is getting a lot of negative press, I'd say, right now with the contract holdup. And just in general, I think people are kind of lower on him. And of course, the amount of touchdowns he had last year in the rushing game, 16 touchdowns, which he's not the goal line back a lot of the time in Buffalo, especially with Josh Allen being there. So I get the concern. I just don't see a lot of other weapons in the Buffalo offense that are going to take whatever production is there. Like I still think he's the best skill player out there. And I think he has a lot of room for having a big year, especially being in Buffalo. There's Ray Davis there. I'm not concerned about that. I think James Cook is the guy there. And I think there's not a lot of other guys there that are going to take receptions and carries. I think he has more room for some more receptions as well. And that Buffalo offense is really good. So I have him at 10 actually, so considerably higher than a lot of other rankings.
Yeah. I am a little more skeptical than you are. I do have him a little lower. Regardless, I'm a little lower on him. I am a little more concerned about Ray Davis. I do think that
you're concerned about Ray Davis.
Negative press. I think they're going to use it. I do. I think they believe in him.
They don't love feeding James Cook based on his 207 attempts last year. He still somehow finished 8 in PPR running backs, which is very impressive.
16 rushing touchdowns. That number is going to go down. Biggest line right now is 9.5 rushing touchdowns. That's significantly lower.
I think he's going to have 207.
Josh Allen
is going to have more receiving use as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get that regardless from James Cook. But I do think they believe in Ray Davis. They think he's a high character guy. He's going to be involved. I'm just saying I'm a little more concerned about Ray Davis than you are. You're kind of brushing him off to the side, kicking him to the curb. No Ray Davis, James Cook's world. 16 rushing touchdowns isn't going to happen again. I don't know if he's going to be a 1,000-yard rusher again, honestly. I know he's waiting for that new contract. He might play with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Buffalo offense is an offense you want to be in. He's probably their best skill player outside of Josh Allen, who's the best everything there. So I do have him at 12. Not saying I'm so low on him that I can't fathom taking him as a top 15 running back this year, but there will be a significant regression. You're looking at 4.87 yards a carry last year. That's high. I mean, I don't know if he'll repeat that. 16 rushing touchdowns is definitely going down. 107 attempts is not a ton, especially playing the whole year. He finished in PPR last year as running back 8. That number is going to dip a little bit. And again, you're going to see a lot these other guys, these Chase Browns, a couple of these other guys emerge. Bucky Irving, who didn't finish in the PPR top 10 because he didn't have that full workload, shift James Cook down a little bit. So that's where I'm at with James Cook. Josh Jacobs, another reliable guy in a good offense. When you look at Josh Jacobs, majority of his rushing touchdowns come at the goal line. Within the 4, within the 5, within the 3. He's going to get every goal line carry. He's the guy they expect to finish runs there. There's no A.J. Dillon. There's no one there. He's going to have a good year. PPR, I'm not as high on him as I am more standard formats. He did run for 1,300 yards last year. It's a lot of yards. I don't know what his line is this year. 15 rushing touchdowns, also a lot of rushing touchdowns. These are high numbers for these guys. These are like breakout years. That's the most touchdowns. You think about his seasons with the Raiders. You're like, oh, he was great for me that year. He finished 3rd in PPR in like 2022, I believe, or something like that. He's never eclipsed 12 rushing touchdowns in his career since last year, and he had 15. They go out and draft a receiver in Matthew Golden in the 1st round. They believe in Jordan Love. They believe in the past game as a whole. So I do see this is another regression spot for me with Josh Jacobs. You're going to get double-digit touchdowns again. He's fine at 11, 12 in terms of running back rankings. People who kind of reach for him, I don't love that. And same with the guy behind him in Kyren Williams. I look at Kyren Williams and Josh Jacobs as similar tier status, the way they score their fantasy points. Kyren Williams is another guy who scores a large percentage of his touchdowns towards the goal line. With Stafford kind of having a nagging back injury, you go out and get a guy like Devontae Adams, who on average feels like he averages 1 or 2 goal line touchdowns a game, whether it's a fade, quick slant, whether they're at the 1 or 2, that could take away from Kyren Williams a little bit. I think his rushing line is at 11.5 for touchdowns. I think that's high. I can see that. I can see him going under that line. I also think they like Blake Corum. And this is his 2nd year now at Michigan. He's going to get involved. And with Stafford being a bit hurt, again, I don't know if he's going to miss time during the season, but if at any point he does, that automatically means less red zone trips for the Rams, which means less goal line carries for Kyren Williams, which ultimately can knock him down a touch. But again, these are high in terms of carries. These are high floor guys because they're going to get the most carries in their offense and they're on solid offenses. But that's my skepticism with those kind of guys. Jack, what do you think?
I agree with you. I see Williams and Jacobs as very similar guys. They're in great offenses for running backs. They've been around a while. I don't necessarily trust, like you said, that they're not going to have a little bit of a regression this year. They don't excite me as much as those other guys, but like we said, they're kind of these last dependable, like clear-cut number ones on their team, right, that I feel like you can depend on. I kind of have a breakout, like that tier of Cook, Jacobs, Williams, and then after that, I see a little more uncertainty in what you're going to get. But like I said, they're not like those exciting options we talked about before. That I think that because people might be desperate for running backs at that point, you didn't draft you're one or two of those guys, then you might draft a little head on Jacobs and Kyren Williams. I'd rather just go the 0 RB strategy than reach on one of those two guys.
For sure. We have a similar opinion on these guys. They're dependable. They're fine at their current ADP, but I wouldn't reach on any of them. I do see potential regression with Josh Jacobs, with Kyren Williams. Moving on, tied for 14th in our consensus rankings, these two gentlemen. One of them being Breece Hall, which is a whole discussion, especially after last year with where he was being drafted in fantasy drafts. Me especially, I got burned taking him at the 102 last year. And then we have Omarion Hampton, who's another rookie coming in a high run volume offense who we think can make an impact. Jack, give me your thoughts on Breece Hall and Omarion Hampton.
Yeah, Omarion Hampton is higher in the rankings for me. You had Breece Hall a little higher. Both guys, I think we're higher than consensus in most cases. I think there's a lot of upside with Hampton. Obviously, I'm not too concerned about the Slater injury. Obviously, it takes him down a little bit. It sucks, yeah, because
you
they're
don't want
gonna
to
have
move Joe Alt. I think Joe Alt's now moving over
right,
a different spot on the line. You don't like to see that, especially when you're high at running back. But I don't think it's the end of the world.
Yeah, for sure. I think they still have a top 15 line. I don't see Najee Harris as too much of a threat, even if he's healthy at some point.
He's on the PUP.
Yeah, he's not in the same category of running back that Hampton might be. We've seen enough of him where it just, he doesn't do what the Mike Tomlin wanted him to do for the Steelers. He lost some carries to to Jalen Warren a lot and never really took command of that backfield. But Hampton is definitely someone I'm targeting, and Breece Hall as well, just because of the upside. The press out of the Jets camp has not been great for Breece Hall. It looks like the backup there is going to be Braylon Allen's going to be the goal line back.
Yeah, 100%.
Breece Hall is obviously a great PPR option. He gets a lot of those little passes there, and Justin Fields is known for that there. And the Jets offense, Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson are going to be the center points. I imagine we're going to see a little bit closer to what we saw a couple of years ago, in that Breece Hall having the opportunity, a lot of opportunities for big plays and getting in receptions as well.
Yeah, and you're skeptical with rushing quarterbacks, especially one like Justin Fields, with Breece Hall and PPR. Is he going to check the ball down? Is Breece going to get that enough volume in the pass game, even with Braylon Allen getting a lot of those goal line carries, like you said, to make an impact and have a top 15 PPR finish at the position? My answer to that is yes. Compared to other running quarterbacks, Justin Fields does have a bit of a higher check down rate, which is something you like to see. And again, it's all finished PPR 16 last year. You hate to see that if you drafted him as the best running back in the league or best running back in fantasy or one of. But with that being said, he only had 5 rushing touchdowns. So you're not fully dependent on the touchdowns with Breece Hall. If you're getting the 5, 6 receptions, you're getting 15 carries, you're not dependent on him like you are Kyren Williams, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor. They need to hit that 10 rushing touchdown mark. Breece Hall isn't one of those guys. So I hope the Jets still utilize him in the pass game. Outside of Breece and Garrett Wilson, the skill position is very, very flat there. I like their new coach. I like the enthusiasm coming from the Jets. I like what I saw in the first preseason game. Braylon Allen is someone I am skeptical. I mean, not skeptical about. I'm skeptical for Breece that Braylon Allen is behind him. He's a specimen, freak of nature. They love him in East Rutherford. He is going to have an impact. I do think you can take Breece here as like the 14th, 15th best running back in fantasy, just because
he finished 16th last year. So that's right.
And it was a floor year. It was a floor year. It was a bad year.
I see you up from here. And
moving on to Omarion.
We're kind of trying to follow this Lions theme of like Montgomery and Gibbs.
Glenn.
So I still rather have Breece Hall. Not too high on like Braylon Allen taking too many carries, but he's definitely going to be a factor there.
For sure, going to be a factor, and it's a good point. Lions, you got Lions blood there, head coach and Aaron Glenn. They like to use the Lions more than anyone. Love to use 2 running backs. Those 2 running backs were extremely viable in fantasy football. Different type of offense. Braylon Allen's going to get his. You're a Breece Hall fantasy owner. You're just going to have to own that a little bit and take what you can get in the passing game and hope for the best. Moving on to Omarion Hampton, we discussed the injuries O-line. Not great, not catastrophic. When you look at Omarion Hampton, and Mina Kimes was at Chargers camp, I believe, and had to do a double take. She was so in shock about the sheer size and athletic build of Omarion Hampton. Just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with here. 6 feet, 220 plus pounds, or 4'6", with a 38-inch vertical. You know who that reminds me of, Jack?
Myself.
Well, yeah, outside of yourself, And you had, what was it, 30, 40 reps on the bench, too? I mean, and the broad jump was like 12 feet. Just, elite metrics coming out of the Schnall camp over there. But I'm going to dial it down for Omarion Hampton. I'm not going to call him Saquon Barkley or Jack Schnall, but I'm going to call him someone with extreme potential and metrics to be a great running back. Has speed, has power, has a coach who loves to run the ball. There's upside here. I think it's I hate that Rashawn Slater got hurt because I could be like, oh, he could finish as a top 10 PPR running back. Now I'm like, he still could, but I'm not as excited. I still think you're getting a great value here with Omarion Hampton. He's in that conversation.
He's got a great offense in there. Harbaugh loves to run the balls. I think he's got a top 10 upside.
When we're going to discuss these names kind of after him, I think it's a significant drop off. I think you have the security. Yeah, you have a rookie. He's a rookie. You haven't seen anything besides a couple preseason carries. You have the security in knowing who's over there at head coach in Harbaugh and what kind of workload you can assume he's going to get, which is a good one. So that's kind of where we have Omarion Hampton. Jack, what do we got next?
Who we got next? Well, we got Alvin Kamara at 16, and then Kenneth Walker and James Conner tied for 17. So I think those are similar guys, like a little older, skewing older, especially with Kamara and Conner there. I think all three, there's concerns there. There's offense concerns with Kamara. I think the injury as well. I don't know if he's going to play all. He's getting up there in age. How many opportunities is he going to score with that offense? With this is a rookie, 25-year-old rookie throwing the ball. We can't depend on that. Yeah. Oh my God. Who knows who's going to be the starter there? But definitely, anyway, he's going to be like the second in QBR in the league. So I'm not too confident on Kamara.
You're a hater.
But he does have the backfield. They have nothing behind him. He's going to get past. He's not stealing too much work from Kamara. Maybe because he's getting older, maybe he will steal some work there, but he's going to get some passing production. He is a RB2 flex type guy. You're a little higher than me on him. Maybe that's some bias. I know you had Kamara a couple of years ago. He helped you win your season, but he's not the same Kamara anymore. He's not in there with Drew Brees or even Derek Carr. And then if we talk about, I'll talk about all three guys, and then you could get on them as well. So Walker and Conner, similar there. Have kind of backups that kind of like in Trey Benson and Charbonnet specifically. Like, I mean, he's got a lot to like about. He might be the better runner than Walker, but Walker's got the lead role right now. They're gonna give him the opportunity. I don't know about these guys. I think Conner I'm a little higher on. I think we saw he could be productive. I think him and Kyler have a good relationship, especially like the passing work. I think overall they're all three guys like I talked about. I'm not so like eager to draft. Like some of the wide receivers in this range, I'm maybe a little higher on than the running backs here.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you there. I am a little higher in Kamara than you. Maybe a little biased, but not too much. He is still 30 years
like 2019 championship or something.
It was the year he had the 6 touchdown game. It was, I was pouring it on. So I was very excited. I ended up winning the league that year. And Kamara was a huge part of that. Times have changed a bit. Kamara's not.
Drew Brees is not the quarterback for the Saints anymore.
Yeah. The offense isn't what it was. Kamara's not what it was. But you brought up the point of how many times are the Saints going to be in the red zone? And the answer to that question is probably not that much.
Probably like once a game, maybe if they're lucky. Maybe once a game.
Kamara is another one of those guys like Breece Hall who isn't touchdown dependent. You got 6 rushing touchdowns from him last year, which is not great, but he still finishes 9th in PPR. So you're not dependent on the touchdowns with Kamara. He's going to be security blanket for Spencer Rattler, similar to how he was last year. And in PPR, I can't move him out of like the top 20 or the top like 17, 60. Like it's just crazy to me. Just seeing his name not in that range in PPR just hurts my heart. So I'm fine with Kamara here. Offense is going to be not great, obviously, but he will return enough value at 15 is where I have him to where he can get you a lot in the receiving work. Who knows? He could score more than 5 touchdowns this year. Hopefully.
Yeah, you've actually, like, through our discussions, moved me up a little bit on Kamara because I do think I like a weapon that's kind of like the whole offense. And if you look at Kamara, I don't see the Olave or Rashichi taken away. Like, I think it's going to be checkdowns and runs for Kamara. That's going to be the whole offense.
Which concerns me a bit because he's 30 and can get injured. What are you going to do? Moving on to Ken Walker. I love Charbonnet too. I like both these guys. And Mike McDonald likes both of these guys. I think both of these guys are at some point in the season going to be viable. I think when healthy, Ken Walker is an elite running back, in my opinion. He can get in the end zone. He can move laterally with anyone. He can get in and out of tackles like anyone in the league. He's had a bit of injury concerns. And yeah, Charbonnet is going to get used third down a bit. Got to take a little bit of the receiving work away. Maybe going to take a little bit more of that market in the backfield. I like both those guys, though. Both those guys are in my top. I mean, I think Charbonnet's in my top 40, 50, maybe even higher. I think they're both good options. I think the Seahawks are going to surprise people this year. Yes, say you bring Sam Darnold over, and there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve there. The passing game, so I think they're going to lean on Ken Walker early, and as a fantasy manager, that might get you out to a bit of a start. They're going to lean on Walker. They're going to lean on Charbonnet. There's no Metcalf over there. They're losing a lot of targets with DK Metcalf. You expect JSN. They bring in Cooper Kupp, who's a veteran receiver, but is not the high volume guy he was when he won the Triple Crown in 2021. So I'm fine with Ken Walker. I think I'm higher on Ken Walker than I am like a James Conner. If you want to talk about injuries and a little bit of age now, James Conner is going to fit those buckets for me, so I'm a little bit skeptical. And I like Trey Benson behind him, but it's not like they're not going to use James Conner. I mean, he runs with an absolute burning passion, which could result in a bit of injury. You're a little more dependent on touchdowns with James Conner. The Cardinals just bother me. They just do. I don't know how to deal with this team. Kyler, it's like I'm in on him, I'm out on him. Trey McBride had like a touchdown last year. So just the overall concern I have with the Cardinals makes me a little lower on James Conner. He's gonna not, like in all likelihood, he's not gonna play all 17 games. That's just how it is. A concussion's gonna pop up, a leg injury is gonna pop up. It's not gonna be season ending, but this guy's, he runs like a Pacheco. Like he runs like to get that extra yard. So
you're saying that's a negative thing. That's what you're saying. That's a negative.
No, it's a positive thing.
Yeah, but I get your point.
Listed as a negative in terms of how much he sacrifices
He's
his
an
body
injury-prone guy,
longevity wise.
Yeah,
and things are gonna flare up if you do that. You saw it with Pacheco last year. You're not gonna stay healthy forever. And he's a little older now, and the Cardinals aren't a crazy volume offense. I'm just a little lower on him.
I get it. I feel it, and I think I'm a little. I feel the risk with him, and I'm not aggressive on him either. It's like it falls to me. I feel like he's gonna fall in a lot of drafts, get an RB2. He fits the bill. He's exchangeable with other guys. You could
and
see him
another
in there.
30-year-old like that. He's 30 years old, so it's getting to that time where some of these guys are going to drop out in the top 20, and one James Conner.
Yeah, I could see it.
We have these rookies coming up. We have younger guys. We saw with Aaron Jones, a little bit last year. He's still dependable, but it's not Green Bay Aaron Jones. He's not jumping in to the cheesehead crowd.
Yeah, I don't know. I never saw James Conner and Aaron Jones comparable, but I see it.
And just in terms of them falling a bit, Aaron Jones was a high-end RB2. So was James Conner.
Yeah, I mean, he's also going to have Murray the whole year. Last year, he I think production was not as good when Murray was out. So we're considering that like Kyler's going to play, and I think that helps him. He has best games last year when Kyler was in there, and the offense was a little more viable and doing like what you'd expect from an offense with decent weapons.
Moving on to a kind of our next tier here. Chuba Hubbard, Isaiah Pacheco, David Montgomery, Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift. I just rattled off a bunch of names, Jack. We don't have to go into depth with each of them, but that's kind of our next tier here behind James Conner, behind Kenneth Walker, behind Alvin Kamara. A lot of different names here. We have some injured players, some veterans, some younger guys, and Pacheco and Hubbard now going to have a full season with the Panthers as their full-time running back. His backfield now. Montgomery, seeing him more as a backup maybe, dare I say, to Jahmyr Gibbs. Andre Swift is another guy in Chicago who had a shaky season last year, ups and downs. Talk to me a bit about those guys, who you like, who you don't like.
Yeah, that's a good list of guys there. A lot of, factors are going to be, everyone's going to have their guy there that they're going to pick out and be like, that's the one I'm targeting. That's the guy I like. And I don't see them that much behind like your Kenneth Walker, your James Conner. So maybe take one of these guys if they're following you. Hubbard, the offense, I think he got a lot of opportunity last year and he was productive with it. Rico Dowdle's there this year. I'm not so sure he's going to have the same amount of carries. I mean, Bryce Young looked better at the end of last year. I think it's going to continue into this year. I'm just not convinced yet with him, but I do think he had a nice year, and I could see something similar this year. And then Pacheco, I think we're considerably higher than most other rankings. I think it's just the offense. He was if you look at
I don't understand, like Carson Steele or whoever
they got no other running backs.
Yeah, he may not play on third down sometimes, but on first and second down, stay ahead of the sticks. It's going to
In
be
one of the
Isaiah
best
Pacheco. I
offenses in the
understand he's
league.
coming off an injury, but I don't understand. Like, he was getting taken in the second round last year, and now there's this huge dip on him. He's still young. He's a stud. He's from our home state, played in our home state at Rutgers in New Jersey. I just love the way he plays, and I don't see him as less than a top 20-ish option. It's hard to fathom that, but continue.
Yeah, if you look solely at opportunity and you don't look at the name, there's no way you're passing on Pacheco. Even if he was like a rookie, you'd be like he's the guy. Like if he came in as the 7th round rookie again from Rutgers, I'd still be like, interesting prospect there on the Chiefs. There's no other options there. Yeah, Pacheco is definitely like intriguing based on the value there. I think a lot of people are gonna miss like, oh yeah, it is the Chiefs offense and he's gonna get a lot of touchdowns. They're gonna see that like pretty early on, I'd imagine, unless there's injuries again, which you could say with any guy here. Montgomery, touchdown machine. You know, if you want to get the backup in any offense, it'd be the Lions offense, right? Montgomery is a dependable guy last year when he played. He was pretty consistent. His points per game were up there, even though Gibbs was taking a good amount of carries. They still like him as the goal line back. He was still getting receiving use as well, even though that was primarily Gibbs' role. The Lions just have a lot of love to give around. They have a lot of stuff to give around there. I think Montgomery is a great option. If you waited on a running back, he's going to be there because a lot of people are going to be like, I don't want the backup. So I think he's going to fall down some boards there. And if you could pair him with Gibbs, that's a great option as well, because either way, you're going to have 2 guys that are in the top like 20, 25, or you're going to have one guy that's going to be a top 5 option. Hopefully, either way Gibbs is, but you might have both.
One dies, the other flies, we like to say.
But yeah.
One gets hurt, the other goes on a spurt.
Let me say this. Like, I had Gibbs and Montgomery in 2 leagues. One league I won, so this was 2 years ago. I had Gibbs and Montgomery. Last year, I had Gibbs and Montgomery, came in second. So that strategy hasn't failed for me yet.
It's consistent production if you just have that backfield. Obviously, it's a luxury and not going to happen in every draft, but you could do it. You could swing it for sure.
Yeah. What do you think about those guys? Hubbard, Pacheco, Montgomery. Any thoughts to add there?
Yeah, I like Hubbard. I think he's just more talented than a lot of people expected. Not,
more household name. Rico Dowdle? I don't know about that.
I'm not concerned about Rico Dowdle like you're concerned about Rico Dowdle. Name doesn't jump off the page. Sounds funny. Chuba Hubbard, however you want to say, but Chuba Hubbard. If you have a non-PG-13 mind like myself. But yeah, I am not as low on Hubbard as you are, given that he's going to have the full backfield. There's some excitement coming out of Carolina. Not a good division. He showed great running ability last year, was very efficient with his touches. He's going to get the red zone touches. I don't think is there as much competition in the backfield as there is. I'm not concerned about Rico Dowdle. And if I go down, if Rico Dowdle has 6 rushing touchdowns this year and absolutely is a merchant at the goal line, strike me down. Jack wins this argument. But that's where I'm at with Chuba Hubbard.
I'm concerned about Rico Dowdle. They also have the Etienne brother. I think the Jaguars guy is not too good, but I think the Dowdle's the competition. But we'll see.
We'll see. Pacheco, we can agree on. This is the starting running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. If you have him outside of your top 25, I don't understand that. He's the starting running back on an offense that's elite with an elite quarterback. There's question marks at receiver with Rashee Rice. Xavier Worthy looks to take a big step. You have Hollywood Brown. You have Juju Smith-Schuster. Still have Kelsey over there hobbling around. But Isaiah Pacheco, Andy Reid's going to get him the ball on first down. He's going to have him the ball on second down. He's going to give him the ball on the goal line when they're near the goal line. He's just a bounce back candidate for me. I think the injury was devastating if you had him last year. He was devastated himself. It was a tough injury to have. It was a fibula. Those are tough to come back from. He came back and helped them in the playoffs. Helped them get to the Super Bowl. He's a full-on stud. So much heart. And he fights for every inch. And I'm going to use that as a positive. I know this is contradicting myself using this as a negative with James Conner. But I believe in the younger, spry back. Even though he's coming off an injury to stay healthy this year. Give me some Pacheco. With Montgomery, like you said, I view him as a backup. It's the Detroit Lions backup, which could make him a viable option in fantasy. The injury last year wasn't great. Didn't like to see that if I'm going to buy. That doesn't make me as excited to buy more David Montgomery stock. This year, he only missed 3 games. PPR 18 finish in fantasy. He's now 28 years old. He has an emerging running back in front of him who's an absolute stud, who's now proven not coming out of Alabama. Oh yeah, we'll use him in the past game. You had him early on. It was frustrating dealing with Gibbs with the fantasy draft capital you put in there. He wasn't. David Montgomery was dominating the backfield for the most part. He really had to be patient, and the Lions kind of viewed Gibbs as a week to week. He's going to get a little more responsibility. He's not just a receiving back, and now we're seeing he's a more violent runner than people expected, given his size and obviously breakaway speed. But he's the complete package at running back, not only just a receiving threat. So I do think Montgomery is going to take a little bit of a hit this year. Again, continue this trajectory of, I'm not saying Montgomery's going to fall off a cliff and he's not going to be viable in fantasy, but it's creeping. Every year we're creeping in separation. And it started here, and now we're like here. But yeah, I mean, Montgomery is fine. I still would rather Montgomery than like Pollard or RJ Harvey or these other guys we're going to get into here. Joe Mixon is another guy who's going to miss, I think he's going to miss a bit of time here. Ankle issues in the past. He's had lingering injuries in the past. He's getting a little bit older. There's a little concern here for me. I'm a little more concerned than you are, Jack. I have Joe Mixon all the way down at 25. You have him at 21. I'm a little more concerned about Joe Mixon missing a bit of time. That's going to hurt his fantasy value. In his first year in Houston, they ran him to the ground, and I think he's starting to pay the price for that with the punishment he's kind of dealt with the ankles and the lower body injuries and extremities. So I'm a little worried about Joe Mixon, his health this year, and that's why I'm a little lower on him. It's solely a health thing. When he's healthy, he's a great running back. We've seen that for so many years. But I do think he can fall. I'm not saying he's going to be like Christian McCaffrey and he's going to get a second opinion and miss 9 games or 8 games. But this is going to linger in the season, we are told. And I just don't ever like drafting someone who's dealing with something right away. So that's why I'm a little lower on Joe Mixon.
For me, the opportunity is there with Mixon. If he's healthy, I'm going to be paying real close attention to the injury reports coming out. If it's just like a 1 week, he's back week 2, I'm ready to be aggressive on Mixon and expect him to be, if he's healthy the rest of the season, a top 15 guy. So that's where I think there's a lot of value in Mixon, because he's getting kind of downgraded right now because of the injury, because some of that uncertainty. I think if we get any clarity or like you're confident for some reason in Mixon being healthy, I would be aggressive on him and see the opportunity there with the Texans offense. He was able to score a lot of touchdowns. He's a touchdown guy, Mixon, when he's given the opportunity. So I think he will be, and there's no really ton of weapons on the wide receiving core that there's been in the last year. And if Mixon's able to get some receiving usage as well, that would be pretty good value at like where he's going in the high 20s in terms of running backs or wherever he is. Yeah, depends
and
on.
A lot can change. A lot can change. We can get to the end of August and we're hearing positive things out of camp, and he could be a go week 1, or he could miss, maybe be like on a snap count week 1 and may play week 2, or he can be on IR and miss 4 weeks. There's a little bit of unknown, so you have to pay attention to that. And as we hear more closer to the season, we're still about a month out, a little less than a month out, that will help shape our opinion a bit more on Joe Mixon. And I think he can return value, especially where I have him now, where you have him now, if we get more positive things.
It also looks like with the value, you could take Chubb in one of your later rounds, like real late.
Yeah.
You get
We
Chubb.
like Chubb.
Combine the two guys, you got them together there. There's also Woody Marks, so we don't know specifically if Chubb's going to get all the work there, but if you have Chubb and Mixon, you're probably going to have a top 20 guy, the combination there. And hopefully Chubb doesn't do too good, and then we going with another crowded backfield there. So we'll see. But I think Mixon, if he's healthy, like we said, is a guy you can depend on, and will likely be one of the only situations in the league where you're getting reliable production.
Yeah. And let's definitely not ignore Chubb. They went out and got Nick Chubb not to have him sit on the sideline without a helmet on. He's going to get some carries. We don't know what that's going to look like, but he's going to be involved. And Jack, I think we need to have a whole episode or show with you running through running backs people have never heard of that could be fantasy viable this year, because you got some names in your bag, my friend, and you got some big winners in there.
Mixon and Chubb will get hurt, and then we're all talking about Woody Marks week 4 into the season. That's the biggest pickup.
I've seen crazier things in this sport for sure. Especially, I mean, at the quarterback position too. You see, you're talking all this. You're talking about Aaron Rodgers, how he's going to play all year, and you're watching a blend of Tyrod Taylor or whoever that Jets have out there. So you never know what's going to happen in football. It's a violent sport. Moving on.
The Jets, maybe not the Texans, but probably the Texans. They haven't won a Super Bowl.
Our next tier here, DeAndre Swift, Tony Pollard, Jalen Warren. I'm listing a lot of names. I'm sorry. RJ Harvey, Aaron Jones, and someone who I know you and I are very excited about potential-wise. And it also was nice to see him take his first touch 100 yards to the house on a special teams play, Mr. Travion Henderson from the Ohio State University. Jack, give me the rundown.
I mean, who isn't excited about Trayvon after watching those preseason highlights? I mean, again, preseason doesn't matter and it doesn't mean anything. But compared to a guy like Ramondre, you're like, that guy looked explosive. And to think that he only got the one carry, I know he had some passing production, and maybe that's what the Patriots offense will look like. But it seemed like they wanted to give Stevenson some more run. I know the reports have been like, this guy's a fumble guy, he's trash. I think he looked great at the beginning of his career. Stevenson, he hasn't looked so hot lately. Henderson's the guy I'm targeting out of New England. And, there's a lot of upside, a lot of big play opportunities. But, it's still a split backfield, and Ramondre is going to get his there. Aaron Jones, same thing. Like, we're in a two-headed backfield there with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. Yeah. And Aaron Jones hasn't really had competition like this. But Aaron Jones is older now, and he didn't look great towards the end of the last year. He started off pretty strong, but it was and then the offense is changing a little bit. There's going to be a new quarterback in there. There's some uncertainty. That's why he's a little lower than some of those like known quantities, especially Jordan Mason's like a little younger back, got some more burst to him, and someone I could see definitely taking over the backfield at some point, depending on how Aaron Jones looks this year. RJ Harvey, another guy we're excited about, looks like a pretty
even if he's the fourth or fifth guy in the depth chart.
Didn't look like that in the preseason game. He went out there with the starters. They really wanted to see what he looked like. You did concern me a little bit about that. We saw I mean, that seems to be what Sean Payton does with his rookie running backs. But
he did it with Kamara in New Orleans.
Yeah, he did it with Kamara. Harvey, again, was drafted pretty high for a running back, and is out of him and J.K. Dobbins. I like him to be the upside guy to get some work passing down too. Both him and Henderson are both PPR threats because they do have the opportunity, unlike a Jeanty, to what we perceive on the college work we've seen is get a lot of receptions as well. Similar to Jalen Warren, we saw with the Pittsburgh back, Caleb Johnson, they're concerned about the fumbles there. He did not look like Caleb Johnson was out there with like the backups, I think, right? Did you see that in preseason?
Yeah, no, he got a lot of burn with.
Yeah, so I'm not pretty down on Caleb Johnson based on what we're hearing. If you're a rookie running back and you're getting negative reports, something's really wrong. Like usually the positives are out there if you're even okay. Like they want the fan base to be hyped about these rookies, especially guys that they're going to be drafting on their fantasy teams. So yeah. Jalen Warren's going to get the passing downs. Aaron Rodgers is going to check it down a lot. He might get a little more work than we expected because he's going to be in pass protection and someone they trust a little more right now. Yeah. And then we got Pollard.
Jalen Warren's been steady for them for a couple of years now. Mike Tomlin, especially bringing in a 42-year-old quarterback, isn't trying to necessarily play the long game with the running back who we've heard could have turnover issues and has to kind of learn the offense and learn the NFL. They may lean on, I have Jalen Warren as higher than Caleb Johnson, but they may just lean on Jalen Warren in the beginning of the year just to steady the offense, steady the ship. But continue, Jack. I think we'll talk about a couple other guys there. Yeah, I got two more to go over here in this tier here. We're talking about Pollard. We heard Tajay Spears is going to be out a little while. It's pretty sustainable, pretty like high ankle injury, I'd say. That's going to keep him out a while. He might miss some time in the regular season, depending on how it looks. And Pollard looked good last year when Spears wasn't playing. So that's big to consider. If Spears is going to not look the same all year, it's a injury that lingers a bit. So I think we're going to have more upside with this offense compared to what we saw last year. Pollard's older now. His metrics are looking not as good as they did 2-3 years ago, but he still is going to be getting more opportunities than last year. Did good with them last year, not great, but he's going to have touchdown opportunities. He's going to have passing production. He's going to be with Cam Ward, we might see some. Who knows? The Titans' offense might be a little better this year. Who knows? Yeah, for sure. And they don't really have too much behind Ridley there, so maybe they get some passing work between Pollard and Spears. And then finally, Swift there.
I'm not the biggest fan on Swift. I think he's going pretty high compared to where I have him. I think the Bears offense scares me a little bit. I don't think they're use one running back. I think they're gonna go by committee a little bit. Swift's never been like a large volume guy. Maybe he is this year.
In Philly, he was. In Philly, he was for a bit, but that's Philly. That's the O-line is the getting the volume. Not
Yeah.
It could be you behind there. You're getting
Exactly.
15 carries behind that O-line.
We already talked about that. I'm a pretty dominant, force there in the backfield. NFL teams, we'll put my number in the bio, so you could call me.
You're fielding calls throughout the year.
I field some calls, yeah. I'm not just useful for my golf swing. I also got some.
Just not for the guy. Just not for the guy who called Shador Sanders. Don't call Jack. He doesn't have time for that shit.
I'd like to get some backstory there. What happened? So he can call me too.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah, not much to talk about with Swift. I'm just a little lower than him, I think, than most people are. He's still, gonna get some high upside plays, but I think they're gonna be more of a passing team. You look at the offenses in their division, they're gonna be behind in a lot of games. Maybe Swift gets some PPR usage there. Maybe I'm wrong on Swift, but I know you're higher than me. I'm just not too high on him. So I'll let you tell me a little bit, maybe convince me otherwise.
I got you. My art of persuasion is about to wow you. So just stay tuned. I'm a little higher, like you said, on DeAndre Swift. I think you said you're concerned about the Bears' offense this year. I'm not as concerned about the offense. You're bringing in an offensive mind in Ben Johnson. Again, we're talking about the Detroit Lions. The one thing I will agree with you on is the committee aspect. They like to use multiple running backs in Detroit. Ben Johnson likes to use multiple running backs. So you're going to fire up Roschon Johnson, and let's keep an eye on Kyle Monungai, who looks great.
I'm very low on Roschon Johnson and still low on DeAndre Swift.
Roschon Johnson's just a goal line guy. He had 6 rushing touchdowns last year. You got to talk about him when you're talking about the Bears.
Like 100 yards rushing on the full year and like 6 touchdowns, sure. So he's just going to
I'm not saying he's going to be fantasy viable.
That makes both of them not valuable. Like it's
I'm
similar
just saying,
thing.
If you have 6 rushing touchdowns in an offense, that affects someone in fantasy.
Yeah, it affects DeAndre Swift. That's why I'm low on.
I'm talking about DeAndre Swift.
All right, go ahead. DeAndre Swift.
Yes, DeAndre Swift isn't necessarily the goal line back, but like you said, I think the Bears' offense is going to be better. I think they're going to protect Caleb a bit more. And if the O-line still stinks, well, he's going to get the ball out a little bit. So we're going to see some good PPR usage for DeAndre Swift, a little more than I think people are expecting. Kyle Monungai looks great too. So it's not going to be Swift's backfield throughout the duration of the year in totality. But like you said, he's going to be on the field more when they're behind in games. And they're going to play Green Bay twice. They're going to play Detroit twice. They're going to play Minnesota twice. Swift is going to be a veteran piece there who's not that old, who they can lean on a bit, who Caleb can lean on a bit. I like DeAndre Swift. I like Rome Odunze a lot. They got rid of Keenan Allen. Where are these? I want to say Caleb's passing line is, I don't know the exact number, but in the high 3,000s.
They got a tight end, throw it up the middle. That's where
they got Loveland. Yeah, but there's going to be something for Swift to eat there at this ADP. Going to highlight a couple of the other guys you brought up, one being, we spoke about Jaylen Warren, Pollard. Tajay Spears injury, having had a high ankle sprain myself, and I'm not the athlete of caliber of Tony Pollard, especially Tajay Spears, they do linger. They don't feel good. This could be a problem throughout the year. Tajay Spears has had ankle injuries in the past. You just don't like to see that if you're a Tajay Spears buyer. But in terms of Pollard, steady production last year, I could see him creeping up on our rankings as we get closer to the season, given the Tajay Spears news. And Cam Ward looked good in the pocket during his first preseason game. He found Ridley on a bunch of good crosser routes. This is all going to benefit. A good passing game for the Titans only benefits Tony Pollard more. I'm a little higher now as I'm talking about Tony Pollard than maybe I was before. RJ Harvey, it's another guy. There's a little concern. You hear, he's 4th in the depth chart. He's 5th in the depth chart. I think J.K. Dobbins, coming off a good year with the Chargers, is going to be relevant. But there's upside there with RJ Harvey. I'm not completely sold. Aaron Jones, first year with JJ McCarthy is going to be interesting. He's going to be involved. Again, if you're taking him as like RB 30 or RB 27, 28, it's fine. I think Jordan Mason's going to play a part. I do see this as a potential 50-50 backfield given the age of Aaron Jones. Travion Henderson is, in my opinion, by the middle of the season at some point will be the starting running back for the New England Patriots. They'll do anything, I think, at this point to move on from Andre Stevenson. They benched him in games last year if you had him in fantasy. He had a good year. He showed potential. He does have issues with turnovers. And TreVeyon Henderson looks the part. He looked really fast in preseason. He's confident. His rushing line is 625.5. That's a lot of rushing yards for someone you can see someone who people say may only be used in the passing game and won't get volume carries. I disagree. I think he could be a 1,000-yard scrimmage guy. I think the Patriots offense is emerging with Drake May, who's going to be better. You hire Mike Vrabel, who's coached some good running backs, one being Derrick Henry in Tennessee. I like the opportunity TreVeyon Henderson has here in the Patriots offense and where you're getting him. He could end up being an RB2 for you in fantasy, and you're getting him, later in rounds in like.
I don't think he's going to be there anymore, but we'll see. I think he's getting
pushed up again. As time goes on, as time will tell. A couple of these other guys in the low 30 range we have here, high 20s, mainly low 30s, mid 30s. Tyrone Tracy, your fellow Giant. We'll talk about that backfield a bit. Brian Robinson Jr., another crowded backfield in Washington. Caleb Johnson, who we spoke about already, kind of brush over him. Austin Eckler, who's also in that backfield in Washington with Brian Robinson Jr., Javonte Williams, Quinshon Judkins, who I don't think we should spend a lot of time on now because there's a question mark there. He's not with the team.
You have him at 28, Zach. I think you got to update that ranking.
I have him at 28.
For us, I have him in the 40.
He's going to not be suspended. Again, now that he's not with the team, as time goes on, that will change.
All right, we'll get to Judkins.
Brown's backfield is Dylan Sampson and Jerome Ford. Okay?
I think
John Judkins is the best running back on the team.
I have Dylan Sampson at 67, though. I have him at 37.
I don't know.
I think we got to help our listeners out.
Judkins, if Judkins on the national champion winners, Ohio State Buckeyes, we like TreVeyon Henderson. You know who split the backfield with TreVeyon Henderson? Mr. Quinshon Judkins, who's a physical running back. Physical running backs in Cleveland, one being Nick Chubb, has had plenty of good fantasy years. Assuming he's not going to be suspended. It's a big assumption. He's not with the team right now.
He's not with the team
right now. As we get closer to the season.
He hasn't spoken a word to the owner. The owner
said, as we get closer to the season, till I'm told he's not playing, he's going to be there. And we'll leave it at that.
Then it's a contradiction again, Zach. Like, you're like, Joe Mixon's going to be out like so much time. We
know Joe Mixon has an ankle injury or has an injury. We don't know if Quinshon Judkins is playing or not. You're talking. That's
Joe Mixon.
Comparing apples to oranges here.
All right, we'll get to the Judkins.
A couple other guys, J.K. Dobbins. I'm going to list off a bunch of names. Again, our ranking is going to be available for you guys. J.K. Dobbins, Ramondre Stevenson, Cam Scatterbo from Arizona State, Zach Charbonnet, Najee Harris, Tajay Spears, who's kind of dwindling a little bit. We're probably going to have him a little lower than we do now. And then we get into backup territories. Move a couple down. Nick Chubb, Jordan Mason, Travis Etienne, who's like the lowest starting running back we have on the list by far.
He's not a starting running back. That's the thing, though. I have him at 57. Zach has at 32. Travis Etienne. Hanks Bigsby is the starting running back right now, in my opinion. I think they're both pretty trash. I wouldn't draft either of them. I think Bashal Tutin is the only guy worth taking a flyer on in the Jaguars offense. I don't think either guy has the production to, like, if we look at the metrics of the last couple of years, they're just not guys I want on my team. Bigsby does not get the passing production. He gets some goal line carries, and ETN gets some catches a little bit. Both are terrible runners and have not really shown anything that excites me. I'd rather take the upside guy in Tutin.
I understand. I totally get it. Only reason I have ETN at 32 or wherever I have him is that he's going to get the at least in the beginning, he's going to get the passing work. I like the Jags offense a bit this year. Yes, he's going to split with Bigsby. You have Tutin behind them, who's lobbying for carries.
About Laquan Allen.
I'm not talking about anyone else in that backfield.
Yeah, let me say this right now. Any team that drafts two running backs in the draft does not trust what they have in place. The Jaguars draft two running backs. Neither of those guys are going to be viable if they're that unconfident. Same thing with the Browns. People are talking about Jerome Ford again because of the injury, but why are they drafting Judkins and what's his name? Dylan Sampson.
I agree with you there. I don't think they trust ETN, but until I see it's completely lost for him, I'm not having him outside the top 35. I mean, he's a starting running back. In PPR, I view him as a starter over Bigsby. Bigsby got a lot of work in preseason. The reality of the situation is we're not high on the Jaguars backfield. Maybe I'm higher on ETN than you, but we can come into an agreement that we're not super excited about the production. We don't know. There's more
Maybe
question marks there.
will unlock something for this offense, and maybe the run game starts to go again, because I do expect the passing game to be better. But based on what we
They
saw last
drafted a
game,
big-time
I would
player.
rather go with the rookie there.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Giants' backfield a bit. And I know I'm brushing over a bunch of names, and we'll kind of wrap up with a couple of your sleepers that you're highlighting. One coming out of Dallas, who I know you're very excited about. But talk to me a bit about your New York Football Giants. Nobody knows Giants football more than Mr. Jack Chanel. You like Scatterbo here. I think I know you like Scatterbo here, but give me your thoughts.
Well, Scatterbo has definitely been downgraded a little bit with the injury. Right now, he's going to be held out for, I think they said indefinitely, like, or something like that right now. So I don't know if we're going to see him in preseason. I hope so. Yeah, I'm concerned with like taking either guy as a starting running back on my team. I do think both are going to be viable. I think Scatterbo is shown a lot in practice. He was getting a lot of hype before this. Tracy's like the clear-cut RB1 right now. He's going to get a lot more reps with the first team. So if I'm going to take a shot on anyone, I want Tracy. He looked great last year as a rookie, a late-round rookie. So it was super impressive to see him climb the ladder there and beat out, big competition in Devin Singletary. So we'll see. But Tracy in combination with Neighbors and all those guys are going to make the Giants offense decent. I think they're going to be in some competitive games maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Tracy out the gate is going to be your like low end flex who can play right away because he's running with sorry, what'd you say?
Scatterbo's held out. Like Tracy is elevated for me to
elevate Tracy into that, low end RB2
definite flex. Maybe a RB2 for the start.
Low end RB2 I think is fair depending on your roster structure and the receivers you have. So we're talking about we're now to the point in our list here where we're talking about backfields, not individual players. And I know Scatterbo's hurt, but they drafted Scatterbo. Scatterbo is a freaking monster at Arizona State, and that doesn't go unnoticed.
In the draft there, and like I said, he was getting a lot of hype in the offseason so far.
He looks like Brian Daboll, just 30 years in
back. Young version of Brian Daboll who doesn't smoke cigars. He jumped.
You have to view the Giants' backfield with a different lens. Not this backfield's going to win me my fantasy league, but how can I maximize the touchdowns that are going to come out of this backfield? And that's how you have to kind of view it. In the beginning, you're going to roll with Tracy. And then as time goes on and Scatterbo gets healthier, and you don't solve this problem at the draft and be like, oh, I got Tyrone Tracy, I'm good. This is, if you have either one of these guys, you're giving yourself a little more work throughout the year. It's the same thing in Washington. It's the same thing in Dallas, which we're going to talk about now. These are full committee backfields, and when you get through your top 25, 30 running backs who are your set it and forget it guys, or for sure are RB1s on their respective teams, well, there's not a lot of work there as a fantasy owner. You know what you have. Now that we get into this range, I believe this is the range where leagues are won and lost. If you can assess these backfields, and we're going to help you with that, to the best of your ability and maximize the usage, because the reality of the situation is Brian Robinson Jr. or Tyrone Tracy, they're not going to get volume like Kenneth Walker and James Conner and Chuba Hubbard. So,
they might. You never know.
But in all likelihood. So what you have to do...
How we see it now, yeah.
You have to maximize what you're going to get there.
One injury away, like Cam Scatterbo being injured. Tracy is up there with those guys. I'd definitely consider him highly right now, but we'll see. Like, monitor the injury reports.
If someone gets injured, then you know what you have because they're the number one running back in their respective offense, and that elevates them. That's the easy part. The hard part is, okay, they're both healthy. Week to week, how do I know who to start, who to not start? If I'm dealing with injuries as a fantasy owner myself, that's tough. And in this specific scenario, Giants backfield, in the beginning, we're going to roll with Tracy a bit until we hear more about Scatterbo and how they're going to, and we see how they're going to get him involved. We'll go from there.
They're both surprisingly similar builds too. Like, you think Scatterbo would be the bigger guy, but they're both the same.
Scatterbo can catch it.
Yeah, both catch it, and Tracy's bigger than you think.
Yeah. Let's talk about Washington's backfield, and let's talk about Dallas' backfield. So with Washington, you have Eckler coming back, you have Brian Robinson Jr., and you have to consider Jaden Daniels as a part of the backfield as well, with his 700 rushing yards last year. So you got a lot of rushing yards to split there. With Brian Robinson Jr., you dip on him a bit and you have him really neck and neck closer. We have him neck and neck or closer in this case to Eckler, just given the fact that Eckler is going to get the receiving work you expect, and Jaden Daniels likes to look that way. You bring in a guy like Deebo Samuel now too, who you saw in San Francisco. They like to utilize him as in the backfield and will motion him out, run the ball. Who knows what Washington has up their sleeve with Deebo Samuel. I'm excited to see it, but that, in my eyes, makes me a little hesitant on both of these guys because there's only so many rushing touchdowns. Washington's going to be in more shootout type games where I think Jaden Daniels have to air it out a bit more against Philly, Dallas, and even the Giants, who we think are going to be a little more competitive than others believe. I'm a little lower on upside with these guys, just given the volume and competition you have for touches out of the backfield. Jack, what do you think?
Yeah, I like that's why they are where they are in the rankings. They're not
right.
the top end guys. They're going to be in a split backfield. The offense is intriguing. The Commanders' offense was amazing last year, but still neither of them were too high up in the rankings.
Yeah. And you expect a little bit of a dip. Like, I know Washington, made the NFC Championship, but they're not going to just cruise. They were in a lot of one-score games last year.
Schedule is brutal this year, along with everyone in the NFC schedule. But the running, the yards per game was better for Eckler last year. He was more used in the receiving game, but Brian Robinson obviously got more work. So both guys, I see about even. It's hard to really differentiate. Robinson with the little edge, he's younger, going to get more goal line work, probably more touchdowns. Although, Eckler could be that guy too. So yeah, they're kind of in that range of like, I don't know. I think we it's a wait and see right now.
They're bench pieces.
And that could kind of be what we're looking at all year of, bench pieces, X options, bye week replacements. That's kind of how we view those guys.
Now moving on to Dallas.
One gets in,
here we go. I know. You're man. I'm higher on Javonte Williams than you are. I think in totality, I think the Cowboys' identity is going to be, they're going to be, regardless of who's back there, they're going to be a pass-first offense. You don't go out and get a deep threat like George Pickens, and you have a healthy CeeDee Lamb, a healthy Dak Prescott. Jake Ferguson's coming back, and they're going to use him more. And then you get rid of Rico Dowdle, right? You bring in Javonte Williams, who wasn't really that efficient. He had spurts in Denver where he was like helpful in fantasy, but no level of consistency. I know you're going to talk about your guy Jaden Blue right away. I think Javonte Williams is gonna again be on the top of your bench, and you're going to monitor his usage. I don't love any running back in Dallas. I like the upside with Jaden Blue. Maybe not as much as you do, but I do like the upside in Jaden Blue. They're going to have to use someone, and someone's going to be viable at some point, but the headline here is they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. Dak's going to be throwing the ball 40-plus times a game, whatever the number might be, and you have to take that into account here.
Similar to the Jaguars' backfield, Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, who you didn't mention, are guys who've not proven anything in the past. I don't.
Miles Sanders.
Jaden Blue. What'd you say?
I'm not worried about Miles Sanders.
No, yeah.
No one in Carolina was worried about him.
Is also dealing with some injuries right now on Miles Sanders. And then Jaden Blue did deal with some injuries right now. I think he's going to be fine. Just keep him out a couple of days. I think he might be back already. Yeah. But there was a lot of hype about Jaden Blue from Cowboys camp. Mixed reports at first saying like his work ethic was a little weird, and then saying he's the next big version of Darren Sproles. He's going to do a lot of things. The hype was being built by the Cowboys, and they like to hype up their players, so we can't really trust what they say exactly, but I think the name Jaden Blue is a big name, and we're going to see a lot of production. And again, upside, he's an explosive guy. If you look at his college highlights at all, he's just someone who's impressive when he gets the ball in his hands. And compared to Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, I don't have confidence in them to take control of this backfield. And if there's a rookie out there that's going to, take the backfield in a top, potential 10 offense in the league, that might be a lot of upside. And where he's getting drafted right now, I'm very high on targeting Blue in those late rounds. I have him way higher than the other rankings out there. So like we talked about, Jaden Blue is a potential dog, a potential league winner. And some fantasy owners might be trying to cure their blue addiction.
You got me feeling blue about Jaden Blue, and everyone who's listening to this now has a clue. I agree with you. The Cowboys have the potential to be a top 10 offense. And if there's someone who can emerge ahead of a guy who we know isn't that consistent and has a large enough sample size to know what he is at this point as a talent, Jaden Blue can emerge. Maybe not right away, but at some point could be a league winner down the road. I am drafting more of Jaden Blue than Javonte Williams, even though I have Javonte Williams higher in my rankings because again, you and I agree, we'd rather at this stage in rounds, wait a round or two, get a guy like Jaden Blue, so maybe cure a tight end need or a quarterback need where Javonte Williams goes, get a Jaden Blue later with knowing you're going to stash either of these guys on your bench regardless. You'd rather stash the upside guy on your bench than a Javonte Williams who you know you're going to get with Javonte Williams. We've seen it for a couple years now. That's my thoughts on the Cowboys backfield. Jack, before we wrap, we covered a lot of names there. Anyone else who stands out kind of at the bottom of the page? We talked about Braylon Allen. We talked about Tootin. Is there someone else you're looking at where you're like, you feel kind of like a Jaden Blue, maybe a baby Jaden Blue for you, who you got for me before we wrap it up? Shoot.
Yeah, let's get back into that Cleveland backfield for a minute because I don't feel like we fully covered it.
Let's do it.
I know, yeah, you're as a former Cleveland guy.
Wow.
Yeah. You can give the backstory if you choose. But yeah, the Browns are a mess of a team. They drafted 2 rookie running backs, clearly not confident in Ford. Now that Judkins is out of it, who do we look to emerge? Similar to what we talked about in the narrative of some of these other teams, the Cowboys and the Jaguars, Dylan Sampson is actually kept out of our top 50, depending on how you post it, Zach. I don't know if you're going to go to 51, where we have Sampson. And that's mainly you're doing right there, having Sampson at 67 while I have him at 37. Sampson is my highest ranked Cleveland running back, and obviously you're going to get him a lot later than that too. So he's someone I'm looking at in those later rounds. And then if you want to talk about that, we could pause for a minute. If
Sure.
not, I'll give some handcuffs that I think.
Well, I'll talk about that briefly, then I'll turn it back to you for some handcuffs and a send off. You unfortunately weren't a former Browns fan like myself. If you were, you would know that if your name isn't Nick Chubb, you're not good.
Well, none of them are good, but if I'm going to take one, it's Dylan Sampson right
That's
now.
fine. The same logic applies that to Jaden Blue. And we don't know. It's because we know Jerome Ford is inefficient. We know that Quinton Judkins may be suspended. We don't know what Dylan Sampson's going to look like. But as a former Browns fan, I can tell you, I do know the offense isn't going to be good in terms of fantasy production. I'd rather have a guy like Jaden Blue or the Cowboys offense, or even like a Manung guy or a Shipley even, that are, if we're playing the injury game here, if they fill in, they have actual potential to score touchdowns, whereas the Browns win total is at like 4 games this year. That's the only reason I disagree with you there. But I'm going to turn it back to you. Give me your handcuffs. Send us off. Let's hear it.
Yeah, and I'd say Judkins is fine to take a flyer on as well, but right now with the value, is not taking into account that he's probably not going to play for some of the season. Yeah. Handcuff-wise, yeah, I think always if you're going to draft a guy like Bijan, take Tyler Algier. You're going to take a Saquon, get Will Shipley. So I think that's just a general theme and piece of advice. Like get that handcuff for those guys you're putting a high investment in. So you're Garendo as well, Trey Benson. I love Keaton Mitchell. We'll see. If Derrick Henry ever goes out, that's going to be a top 10 guy in the league. Yeah. Kanile Manungai, we talked about him. Yeah, just a lot of guys. Maybe Khalil Mullings is a guy I'm looking at now that Tajay Spears is out. Maybe he can take some load. Maybe that might take that role if Spears is out. So we'll see. Yeah. Other than that, excited for. Yeah, I'm glad we got to talk, Zach, and run down these running backs. There's a lot of excitement about fantasy football this year. A lot of interesting running back rooms that we could break down and a lot of uncertainty. So that's hopefully we were able to give you guys some clarity with that.
Yeah, 100%. We really appreciate it. This is something, like I said in the beginning of the show, we've been wanting to do for a while, and there's a lot more to come. We got a receivers episode coming out, followed by tight ends and quarterbacks. We're also going to take you through our fantasy season. We are in a big fantasy league ourselves together, week to week, our rankings week to week, who we see emerging as a potential week winner, not only a league winner. So keep following us throughout the year. It'll be fun. It'll be exciting. I get to tell Jack how wrong he was looking back on these videos and vice versa. And yeah, we'll catch you on the flip. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you in episode 2.
Send us any questions on social media, and we could break them down on the podcast as well.
Absolutely. If you have any questions, comments, agreements, hit us up. Appreciate you guys. Till next time.
Looking forward to next time.